Welcome back, and today we're taking a look at the Bestech Knives Tardis. So this is an Ostap Hel design, and he has some very distinctive looking designs, usually tactical style. And you can get this particular knife in 7 different variations, basically 7 different colors of G10. They all have these two-tone blades with the black coating on them and the satin flats. This is a medium-sized EDC knife coming in at 7.6 inches with a 3.12-inch cleaver-shaped blade of D2 steel with, like I said, a black coating on the primary and on the fullers and on the spine that wraps around right here as well. Nice satin flats. We have a generous row of functional grippy jimping that grabs a hold of that thumb nicely if that's your thing. You have a small sharpening choil that does clear that plunge and should give you a few sharpenings before it starts to widen up. You can widen it up yourself because that stop pin is internal, so you don't have to worry about that being in the way. You have dual thumb studs. These are coated blue. I don't know if those are aluminum or titanium. I'm sure they're probably aluminum. And this blade should be good at pretty much any type of utility task. It should be great at precision cutting and giving you the ability to guide that tip with better control and accuracy, because you can get right down on it. And if you need to make a nice linear cut, it should make it a lot easier because of how that tip sits down and you don't have to raise your hand up or anything. Now let's see how this thing performs. The knife came with a pretty good edge out of box, and because I have this straight edge and the heavier mass of this bigger blade, I decided to try different cuts, see how it felt. But it's really going to excel at this type of cutting when you're pretty much almost doing like a push cut through things. And then, like I said, that mass is going to carry itself through the material. It's slicing fairly well so far, and it's ground decently thin. Bestech usually does a pretty good job with their D2, and hopefully this one holds up through the rest of the testing. We're going to test the ergos on this piece of pine and also see how that edge wants to bite into the wood. Right away, it felt really good in hand, especially in this hammer grip. I was able to get a lot of downward pressure into the wood, and I figured I would because of the straight edge. That's usually the case because you have the same amount of pressure from heel to tip, and it's just really wanting to bite into the wood, and I'm able to push pretty darn hard. No hot spot to speak of. You have a pretty neutral handle and you have contoured scales. It was locked in, felt good in the hand, and the width of the scales fill out the hand nice enough. You do have that little forward finger choil, but it didn't really cause any problems. I thought it was pretty darn comfortable. Now we move on to the 1/2-inch twisted sisal rope, and I decided to pull it up on a block because if I don't do this, it's very difficult to do this cutting. Can you do it? Yes, but you're only going to be cutting with the very tip before you come in contact with that cutting board. So this is about the only way you're going to see me doing this because it's just too miserable. I already get enough blisters doing this regularly. So it was fairly easy. The edge had I'd say decent bit of bite. It wasn't, you know, the best at cutting the rope that I've seen, but it was definitely doable. Once again, that mass of the blades playing a part here too. I'm not having to push down super hard, and it's making its way through it pretty nicely. We end up getting through 60 cuts before I ran out of rope. It did feel like the edge was kind of starting to die down at around 60 cuts, but we'll see in just a second with the rest portion of the testing. The straight edge provides a controlled linear cut, so it makes doing those drag cuts very easy because you can get that tip down on the material and pull it straight through. Rather simple. And as you can see, I'm not using the block here because I'm able to get the cut started because it's high enough and then pull the tip through the material. So like I said, it can be done, but you can, if you really pay attention to where I'm cutting, I'm pretty much focused on that forward portion by the tip, and that's exactly what I'm doing with the denim. I'm pulling it straight through with that tip, And it's not the easiest, but you can definitely get it done. And I think the knife did fairly well. Didn't blow me away by any means, but did good enough for me. All right, now let's take a look at the deployment and the action of this knife. This is a dual thumb studded knife. You could also use those fullers to reverse flick it. It's easier to use those thumb studs in my opinion. And it has a nice snappy action, well-tuned detent. And because of that mass of that cleaver blade, this thing is ridiculously smooth. It's riding on ceramic ball bearings with a ceramic detent ball. Very, very smooth action. You also have good access to those thumb studs, and they're also pretty darn comfortable. I had no problems with them. You can access it on the left side as well. Now let's take a look at the handle area. You have G10 scales, peel ply G10, and they offer a good bit of grip. They're not overly aggressive. I think they're perfect. And you got tons of milling. You got a little milled line here. You got a down chamfer right here. You got just the flats. We can see the actual flats. Hopefully you can see that. It's hard to see because of the solid color. They also have two-tone G10 options as well. You have the Bestech branded pivot. Does sit a little bit proud of the scales, no problem. It's a T8 pivot, and unfortunately they have T6 body screws. I wish they would use all T8 so we could use one driver and you don't strip out the T8s as easy as you do on T6, even though I have not had a problem with any of the Bestech knives. It is flow-through construction. As you can see, 2 hourglass standoffs in the back right here. Inset stainless steel liners. And there is no internal milling. However, it doesn't feel too weighty. First off, in grams, 117.9 grams or 4.15 ounces. Not bad for that big of a chunk of D2 steel. Now let's take a look at the lockup. Mine is sitting, I'd say, at around 50, maybe even 60%. I can't muscle any side-to-side play whatsoever, and absolutely no up and down. Bestech usually does a phenomenal job with their liner locks. I've spine whacked them. I've batoned with some of these, and they hold up to the abuse. Your access to the lock bar is good because the actual lock sits up a little bit higher than this cutout right here, and it has some texture. Easy to get your finger on it, no problem whatsoever. Now, during the cutting, this wasn't as big of an issue as I thought it was, but I was kind of worried because the lock bar also sits up a little bit higher than this. You can see now I got it off and it's sitting flush. So it does sit a little bit proud of there, and I was worried that that thin little portion right there would be very uncomfortable when I'm gripping down on it. But I think I put more pressure with these 3 fingers because of the way this flares out. And I didn't really notice it. Maybe some long-term cutting you would feel it, but I didn't have any issues with my testing. Now for a quick size comparison with the Ontario Rat Model 1 and 2. Next we have the Volsteed Raccoon Cleaver Blade and the Kaiser Doman. Lastly, we have the CJRB Alt Pyrite and the Kaiser Sheepdog. All right, nitpicks and complaints. I wish they would have opened up the sharpening tool just a little bit. You still have some sharpening life, and at least I can extend it if I want to. And even though I love this deep carry pocket clip, it's very minimalistic. You probably wouldn't even notice that it was a knife because of the way the pocket clip looks. It's only tip far right hand tip up only, unfortunately, which is kind of a shame. I don't think you could swap it around because of this angled, how it's angled. If you flipped it over, the angle would be opposite, I'm pretty sure. But other than that, I think it's a good looking knife if you're into cleaver blades. It has beautiful action. It's sliced well. And Bestech usually does a pretty good job with their D2 steel. So it's a comfortable knife in hand, and it just depends on if this design is for you or not. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.